Okay, so we opened up this exercise 1 off Moodle, week 10, and we pressed the little teapot on the rendering toolbar, and we got a black scene. So what that's telling me is that the actual light is not coming through the windows. So what we need to do is to create a material that will then allow light to come through for the glass. So if you were to go to your drop down on your materials, so if you click on the paint bucket,
we exit out of the black box.
yeah, you can get out of the black box at this point. We can then click on the drop down for the materials, go to glass and mirrors, and just choose the most basic material, the grey, transparent or translucent glass grey. So then I'm going to go and right click on one of my groups or my windows, edit the group, and just make sure that I paint the glass. And you can hold shift and paint as well, and that can paint glass quickly. So then I can close that group, right click on the next window and edit component.
No, it's not doing
It may not look like it's doing anything, but it should be improving. It will improve the render. So now you can carry on doing that, and I'm just going to test mine by just pressing render. And you can see now that we're getting a little bit of light coming through the glass. Okay, so we can stop that. Okay, so the next step is you can close down any rendering windows that were open, and we're going to create some lighting in the scene. So we can create just a spherical light using this tool here. So if we click on sphere light, I can then click on the ground and then drag out a nice big sphere, and it will create a sphere object. Then what I can do is select that object and move it vertically, and I want to place them into the room. So what I'm going to do is under layers, I want to turn off the main ceiling, so that when I'm looking from above, and the office ceiling, when I'm looking from above, I want to make sure that sphere is in each room. So you're going to use the move tool and copy, which is either control or option if you're on a Mac. And we want to have 3 spheres in each of those.
like quite high up.
A little bit high up, yeah. You missed everything I just said, or?
Just how many rooms we
Yep. So what I want you to do next is click on the very first button of the V-Ray tools, which is the asset editor. It looks like a V in a circle. And that will open up this dialog here. So in the V-Ray asset editor, there's basically like 4 main menus. So we've got materials, we've got lights, we've got objects, and we've got general settings. So if we were to click on the light menu, you can see here that we've got the V-Ray sphere light. So that V-Ray sphere light will control all of those spheres. Even though we've copied it multiple times, it's going to control all of them. So if I go to the dropout here, you can see I can get some options for my spheres. And if you wanted to, we could add a little bit of yellow to the color, so you can make it a little bit more of a natural tone. So I want to see what's happening when I make those changes. So with V-Ray, you have the option to set an interactive render. So under the little teapot, you see there's a little down arrow. If you click on that down arrow, you see you get a little finger. Some of you have it up on the on your main tools, but some of you might not. So click on the finger with the teapot, and it will then turn on interactive. So just check out this. At the moment, I've started my V-Ray interactive render, and I can't really see those sphere lights again, so everything's looking dark. So under intensity, I can start to play around with that. So I'm going to say 100, enter. And you can see on my screen I'm slowly starting to get a bit of lighting. So actually I'm going to crank that right up. I'm going to type 1000 and enter and just see what happens.
Get that extra part of
Yep. And intensity is what you want there. Oh, if I split. Just like crash.
Now it looks like it's not.
Yeah, just don't send the report and then restart the file.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, I don't want to see the little sign.
Put in. So if, for example, you can see your spheres in your render, I'm just going to move this out of the way. So there's my sphere. And see, you can't see through my glass at the moment. My glass, I never painted these windows here in the little offices. So I'm just going to quickly paint those. Oop. Okay, so if your sphere is showing, you can go to the sphere light settings. So go to the light menu, click on the sphere light, and then you can click on invisible, and you can then untick affect reflections, because you may not want the sphere to show up in the reflections of like the glass. If your computer keeps crashing while you're in interactive mode, you may just need to use the standard render mode. So you would have to switch back with a drop down here to this first little teapot. That's just the production render, not an interactive render. Okay, so I'm going to click now back on my 3D view number 1. And you can see that it's looking alright. But next I want to really try and get that sunlight to work in the sky in the background. So I'm going to then click on the sunlight under the light menu. And you can see that it's enabled because there's a tick in it. So again, under the light menu, just above the sphere light, we've got the sunlight. If you click on that, you get the options for the sunlight. And there's different sky models, so I'm going to try and change the sky model. So at the moment it's at some random name. So if I drop down and I'm going to choose Prethim, and I might just need to stop my render and then render again. So if I go to stop after choosing Prethim, I can then hit either interactive or render again to see what the results are. And it still hasn't quite kicked into gear or into life yet. So I had a little bit of trouble with this yesterday from using an existing scene. So I'm going to just see why that might be. Okay. Okay, so the reason why your image or your sky isn't showing is if you go to settings on this particular file, for some reason, I had set the background to a black color. So under settings, which is the cog, you go to environment. Then under background, you can click on the little checkered square, which refers to texture. So if you click on the checkered square, I can then go and change the settings. It brought up an option for changing the texture. So at the moment it's set to a color, but on the left hand side it gave me a whole list of options and I needed to choose sky. So I'm just going to come through and help everyone find that. 1 second. So I've got the grey haze, which means my horizon line's a little bit too high. If I go back to lights, then click on the sunlight, I get all the options for that light, or that sunlight. So down the bottom here, or roughly down the bottom, I've got a horizon offset. So I can drag that to be a higher value, which will then bring the horizon much lower. So you can see the sky is now looking a little bit better. I can also play around with the intensity, like the sphere light. I can play with intensity. So whereabouts is that? Okay, so yeah, the intensity multiplier, so if you increase that to like 1.5, you can see that the skylight or the sunlight power will increase within your model or within your render. You will only notice the changes if you're using the interactive render, but if you're using the standard render, then you need to re-render each time. Okay, so we need to add a few elements to get the lighting better in the scene. So we're playing with the sunlight, that's one element. We've added the sphere lights, that's another few elements. But the next one is we can actually play with just the camera, the shutter speed of the camera, to improve the lighting of the scene. So this takes a little bit of energy on the computer, so just be careful, maybe have a save of your file save just in case. If you then go to settings, you'll find under camera that we have an exposure value, so an EV. So if you reduce that value, you'll get a brighter scene. So if I was to type 13 and enter, the scene will get lighter. So I'm going to go 12. Yeah, I said 12. It may look quite bright. I'm doing it 12 on my screen because the projector darkens the view, but you may only need like 13. Yeah, it's alright. I'm just going to stop my rendering, so you can click on the stop button in the V-Ray frame buffer. And I'm just going to close the V-Ray frame buffer, and I'm going to close the progress window, we don't need that. And this can just go to the side for now. Okay, so these three pieces of geometry, I want to make them all a group, so select each of those, holding shift, then right click on it and make group. Now I can't make it a V-Ray object light yet because there's an issue. The group of those geometry within inside of that group, there's more groups. There's more groups that I need to explode. So I need to double click with the select tool on the group. Then I need to make sure that within that group that the items are exploded. They can't be groups. So now this is just one group with exploded items inside. So when you're making an object light, like let's say you have a lamp and you want to make that light bulb an object light, so you're making a light out of that object. It can only be one group, and within the group it can't be multiple groups. So it just needs to be just one group. Got a question? That one's good.
Okay, so do
That one needs to be exploded, and then the far left one also test that one. Yeah.
Explode them all individually.
Inside of that group. Yeah. So now that we have created this object and we've made sure that it's ready to go for an object light, we can click on the mesh light button on the V-Ray toolbars, and it looks like this button here. So if you were to click on that, it has now created a light out of that object. So if I was to go to the light menu in V-Ray, so the light menu, you can see that there's now a mesh light. And I'm just going to test how that's looking. So I can either do a teapot render, which is a production render, or I can do an interactive render. So click on interactive if that's working alright for you. And you can see our strips are now fluorescent. Yes. Yep. Okay, so just before we go on break, I just want to show you one last thing to do a little bit more of a quality render, I would say. So if I press stop on the interactive, I then want to go to settings, then under render output, so you can see how I can expand and collapse these menus. Render output, if you see those black edges on your screen, that's because you've got this thing called safe frame turned on, and that will just show you the aspect ratio of the image that you're producing. So if you've got those bars, black bars on the side, that means you should be using like a 4:3 ratio for your image. Some may not have it. You've got them there. See those big black?
These ones.
These big black.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if you're seeing that, that just means your aspect ratio of your image is square. But typically, like what you see on most televisions and most cameras these days is an aspect ratio of 16:9. So we can go down the bottom here where it says aspect ratio, drop it down and select 16:9. And then that will give you some black bars along the top, most likely. So you can close that down and that down.
Safe
just to
frame,
get her out of the
you
way.
turn off or on?
Leave safe frame on,
Oh,
and then bring this back up now, and then set it to 16:9. Perfect. Okay, so then next what we're going to do is we're going to set the image size or image width just to 800 at this point, because we want to produce just a smaller image for test purposes. Okay, so once you've set 16:9 for your aspect ratio and 800 for the image width, I want you to click on a thing called render elements on the right hand side. And under render elements, I want you to click just below that and then you'll be able to select denoiser. And this is a really cool render element, which means when you render and you see when you get that hazy look to your image, this particular element denoises your image. And I'm going to show you how that works shortly. So you select denoiser, and then the last thing I need to do is I'm going to set the drop down for the rendering to just render with V-Ray, so a straight render, not an interactive render. So if I click on that, it's now going to start processing my image and do a production render. So now, yeah, once we've done our rendering, up in the top left corner we've got denoiser available. But if it's still black, it means that it's still processing the denoiser. See, on my progress window, it's still processing that denoiser.
That's perfect.
Yeah, it must be still processing it. Okay, mine finally has shown me that it's 100%. Then I'm going to go back into denoiser. And the quality of the image will improve a lot.
What happens if you don't have that denoiser?
Okay, so the next light we're going to create is a dome light. So on the toolbars, we're going to click on dome light. Then I'm going to click on the ground, and you're going to see that dome light. So if I look at that dome light, you can see it has an arrow. So that's north for the light. And if I now go to the V-Ray asset editor, you can see now under the lights we have a dome light. So I've got a dome light showing here, and I'm going to look at what that produces. So I don't need you to do this yet, so we'll just have a look at what happens to my view. And see, nothing's happening. So if you ever see this, at times, if you've still got denoiser showing, you're not going to see what's happening to the RGB. So see, I went to RGB and now I can see the changes now update. So if I step outside my model, I'll come around and help you guys once we have a look at, so if you could just have a look up on screen. There we are. You can see the dome light now in the background. So it automatically will add a sky. And as I turn my model, you can see that it's a 3D sky, so it turns with the model. So if I now go back into scene 1,
So is that like a dome light?
that's what the dome light will do. Yeah, it will add a texture, but you can also use that that dome light, to light your scene as well. So it acts like a 3D environment plus a light. So I can increase the intensity of that, so I could go maybe like 5. You can see that gets quite bright, so I can't even see the image anymore, so I might as well go to like 2. But this particular light isn't a spherical light, it's only half a dome. So the default one that comes with V-Ray is only half a dome. We need to, if we want to use a correct dome light, we need to find a texture that is a full spherical texture. So to do that, I'm going to have to upload one to Moodle, but I'll just show you how it works. So under the HDRI texture, we've got the little checkered square. If you click on that, under file, I can now go and browse for another file. So I'm going to upload one of these to your computer, but at the moment I'm just going to select this one here on my computer, and then I'm going to close the dome light. So then what happens is that I need to make sure that that dome light is spherical. So I've got spherical here, and then that will ensure that it will show the whole entire 3D picture. And then it's just a matter of increasing the intensity on my screen. See that? I've now increased that and it's slowly getting a bit brighter. Okay, and then I'm just going to go to a proper render and just show you what the result is. So you can see it's an actual environment in the background, and that will light the scene plus act as reflection for the windows and will act like a background in your image. So
Could you show us it again?
yeah, I'll show you it again. So I'll stop that.
Or do we have to download it?
Yeah, and I'll upload the image right now to Moodle. Okay, so we're going to add a glass material to our existing glass material. So how you do this? So if I'm just going to close my renderer. I need to get the paint bucket. Next, I need to click on the materials dialog or the materials menu. And then to the left hand side of the materials menu, there's an extra arrow. So down on the side, you can see it will expand another menu off to the left. Then if you click on glass, you will get some additional glass materials. So again, I was in the material menu. So next to the lights, then I click on the little arrow to the left and it shows all the libraries that V-Ray include in their installation. Click on the glass folder, scroll down, and I'm going to find the one near the bottom, and it's called Glass Window Natural. So I'm going to right click on that and add it to the scene.
You mean neutral?
Neutral, sorry, yeah. So Glass Window Neutral, right click on it, add to scene. Then it will show up in the middle pane here, so it will show up in this middle menu. You need to then right click on that and copy. So right click, copy. So once you've copied it, this is the next important part. We need to eyedrop the glass that we would like to copy it to. So I need to get the paint bucket, hold Alt down on my keyboard, or it could be a different key on your Mac. I think it's Command or Option.
Should it be in the group?
Does it come up that red
Yeah.
thing?
No, it should be Command.
Is it
Hold
even-
Command over here. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
So it's Command. You hold Command with a Mac.
Should it be in the group when you do this?
No, you don't need to be in the group. So I'm holding Command or Alt, depending on your PC. I now click on the glass and it finds the glass material. That now becomes the active material. Then you need to right click on that material. It should be blue in the list. Right click and select paste. So I've now just copied and pasted that material onto my glass.
I'm doing it. I can't see this again.
Yep. So I might not be able to undo it. Okay, so where's my glass? Neutral. Okay, so have you added it to your scene? So you need to right click and copy the glass window neutral. So right click on it, copy. Then you get the paint bucket. And you need to adjust the dialog so that you can hold Alt or Command down and click on the glass that's on the SketchUp model, and then that will make that material active. Then you need to right click on it in the list, it should be blue, and paste. And it will then copy and paste the material that was added to the scene onto the existing glass material.
So which one should be blue?
So, one sec. Then you can just do a test render and okay, so let's say we wanted to add our own custom texture image. You can still do that the normal way in SketchUp. So, for example, I could choose a color, and I'm just going to add this color to the back surface on the wall, and I'll make it a lot brighter so you can see what I've done. So, if I had a custom image, I could maybe go File. Well, I've created that color, so I could actually just go to Use Texture Image, and it will open up my computer. Then I just need to find an image. I'll just see if I can find one somewhere. And okay, here's an image. It's a random one, but we'll use it. Okay, so I've just added that image and changed the scale of the image. I can also change the scale by going to texture position, and I can make it a bit smaller. I could probably do that like that. Okay, so technically this should render. So if I now go to the render toolbar, so I go to Asset Editor, and I'm going to choose Interactive, and you know it's exported it, but I can't see it. It's not showing in the V-Ray frame buffer. So if it's not showing, you may have denoiser selected, so make sure that you go back to RGB so that it will show the interactive state of the render. So there's a few things that you can do with this image now. So if I go to the eyedropper and I make sure that that is the selected image, under diffuse I could adjust the brightness of that. It's not showing. Why is it not showing? Oh, there we go. It's finally updated. So I can adjust the diffuse, which is just like the brightness of it. I find that if you turn off, where is it? No, that's alright. Reflection, you can add a reflection to that. And it's starting to reflect a bit. If over here, over by diffuse, you see the little checkered box again, if I click on that, I can play around with the gamma of the image, so it's just kind of like the contrast. So if I click on the drop down here, by the way I'm recording this, I can go to custom gamma curve, and then I can play around with the gamma slider. So that can make it look a little bit different as well. So it seems like my image isn't updating on the screen here, so I might just stop it, stop my render, and then click on interactive again. And it should then hopefully update. There we go. So it's now reflecting, the image is now reflecting itself. Alright, so yeah, you just add it, if you want to add your own custom texture, add it like you normally would in SketchUp, and it will render in V-Ray. And you can do a few extra things in V-Ray to it, like add reflection, make it translucent, and I think you can even add a like emissive layer. So up in the top right corner you've got a little plus button. If I go to emissive, it will make it like a fluorescent material. So that can be quite interesting if you're creating like a neon light effect. Alright. So we're just going to create a slightly higher quality image. So I'm repeating myself with the video. So if I go to the asset editor, then we go to settings. You can see under the render output we've got dimensions. So if you want to create a higher quality image, we can enter a larger value under the image width. So if I type in, let's say 1920, enter, then the aspect ratio will adjust the height, so it should be 1920 by 1080 or approximately that. Then what we can do is make sure that we've got denoiser, which we do. Okay. Then I'm going to set it to render with V-Ray, and just stop that. I don't want it to actually render yet because I want to show you the quality. So with this slider, I can adjust the quality. So I want to make sure I'm using just the teapot, and I don't want progressive to be turned on. So just the teapot, progressive is turned off, the denoiser is available, and we can play around with the quality. I want you to render on medium quality because I think high quality may take too long. If you find your computer is powerful enough, render with medium quality. Okay? I'll pause it. So once you've made your image, you've created it, and it's showing up in your V-Ray frame buffer. So this is the V-Ray frame buffer. I'll quickly just hit render. Once you've finished your rendering, make sure it obviously shows what you want. But you've got a button up here, looks like the save button. You can then just save that as an image. So as a JPG. Okay, and that's what I want. It's the JPG that I want you to give me or send me.
So are we sending what we did today?
You can send me what you created today if you wish, but I'm more interested in the final render that you're going to produce.
So do you see a size of the JPG?
Save it as a JPG. With the save button. It's a little blue button at the top of the screen, or top of the V-Ray frame button.
My wedding shop. Yeah. Or in the other picture.
You can use that one, or it could be a different project. You could do it of your water tower, and then you get to use it in your assignment and make that look nice. Yeah, that would be cool. Actually, if you did it on your water tower, then it would be much better looking. Okay.